Rick and Morty is a strange cartoon, not because it features absurd situations or bizarre worlds that seem to have literally sprung from the mind of a madman, and not even because of its dark humor. It's not humor at all, but a given. It's strange first and foremost because it has managed to survive to this day, despite being, and I speak for myself here, not exactly the funniest joke. A flash parody of the cult classic Back to the Future, where Doc tricks Morty into giving him a blowjob. Oh, what? The flash culture of the 2010, that's it. Back then it was probably the most harmless thing in that dark corner of the internet. And despite everything, that silly flash creation evolved into a full-fledged, an animated series that takes gore to the extreme. It's just mind-blowing. And despite its shocking content, it's one of the most hyped and trending cartoons out there today. A comprehensive anthology of all the trashy elements of modern pop culture. I just rewatched it ahead of the release of the new 8th season, of course, with the now classic chest voiceover. Well, anyway, I've got something to say about this cartoon, and what's more, I'm going to share some ideas that might be a bit basic, but damn, they're interesting. What do you say, Lit? I say, let's get this party started. Let's get right to it. Freak and Morty isn't the only show of its kind. Before it, there was the cult classic Futurama and Family Guy, and a year later, BoJack the Horse came out, along with a whole bunch of other cartoons that exploit topical issues and, in the process, mock everything and everyone. But if you take Futurama, for example, it feels much more down-to-earth and classic. It avoids tackling any particularly controversial topics, and the characters' story arcs are, well, essentially a classic sitcom with a touch of dark fantasy and black humor. Rick and Morty, on the other hand, know no bounds. They have absolutely no taboos, and there's an interesting reason for that, in my opinion. Let's go back to 2013. Minecraft, Skrillex, the GTX 700 series. Back in 2013, the world was kind of in a state of predictability, I guess. At least, the general mood was one of belief in stability and predictability. If we're going to draw analogies, 2013 is like a cozy little cottage tucked away in the Irish countryside where everyone believes in whatever they want. And now, during this challenging period, Rick and Morty bursts onto the scene and vividly illustrates concepts like, say, nihilism. The show's first few seasons basically tell us that since there are an infinite number of realities in this world, none of them really matter. Yeah, every action has a consequence, but nothing matters. Remember that episode where the duo just switched realities after they messed things up in their own? Back then it was kind of a departure from the norm. The heroes didn't become better by overcoming the problem, they just ran away from it. And now that I'm saying this, I bet 100% of the people watching are like, so what? So what, dude? Yeah, the multiverse. Yeah, anti-heroes, a non-cliche episode. And so what? And what about this? It's the whole 12-year-long joke. Now look around. Pandemics, wars and revolutions. Crypto, pyramid schemes, scams, oil-related deepfakes, porn, and mass hysteria on social media. Over the years, the world has literally evolved into an episode of Rick and Morty, where Rick blows up a planet because, well, why not really? And this is where we get to the main point. Rick and Morty isn't shocking anymore since it's essentially become a documentary with some major caveats, but look at this. Rick Sanchez is the first truly post-human character. He's not just a cynical Einstein, he's completely detached from morality because morality makes no sense in the multiverse. He could wipe out an entire civilization and then order a burger at McDonald's. He could create a mini-universe just to replace his battery and then simply forget about it. It's crazy, but that's pretty much where we're at. We're glued to TikTok while terrible things are happening somewhere else, and we're messing around in a terrarium while real ecosystems are collapsing. We're creating models that will most likely replace artists, and that's really just the beginning. You might think, so what? Why worry? There won't be any jobs left. And actually, that sounds logical. Just like with Rick, that's us, but without the self-delusion. And here, of course, the show has to offer something to counterbalance logic and cold acceptance. Morty is the last normal person in the world, where normality is simply dead. Morty suffers, worries, and tries to be good, but every time the world, that is, Rick, reminds him that it's all pointless. And what happens in the end? He either becomes a moron or a psychopath. Remember the scene where he wipes out the inhabitants of a planet in the dead of night? Morty is us when we try to stay human, but reality keeps getting in the way. Why? The clash between logic and morality, the clash between common sense and emotions. This is a recurring theme throughout the entire animated series, I suppose. The futility of emotions and this so-called righteousness, in my opinion, reached its climax in the 4th episode of the 7th season, where the family is eating a delicious pasta dish. But the curious Morty discovers that it's not just pasta, and the innards of a corpse from a planet where suicides turn into spaghetti. Morty starts to feel remorse, which is totally unnecessary. Ultimately, this means that capitalist authorities, in their quest to make more money, are turning the planet into St. Petersburg. In short, they're building an entire business empire on macaroni. And that means the planet is on the brink of collapse. It's really rough living there. And Rick shows everyone the pointlessness of a life that ends with macaroni. Well, it seems like everything is more or less working out. After that, Morty becomes less curious, but most importantly, he prefers oblivion to the terrible truth. It kind of goes against a sound moral compass, but it lets you enjoy life. That's Rick and Morty in a nutshell. You'd think, damn, this is crazy, who even comes up with this nonsense? But in reality, if you set aside all that crazy nonsense, you're left with some pretty interesting arguments. A bold departure from the norm, which unfortunately, in my opinion, it doesn't work as well as it did 10 years ago. I've been reading reviews of the new seasons, and everyone's saying it's gone downhill, it's a letdown. They just want the old Rick and Morty back. But whether I'm watching the old episodes or the new ones, I don't really see much of a difference. There is a difference, but not enough to get all worked up over in online arguments. What's changed most of all is the world, both the real one and the media. These days, it's pretty intense. Whether it's in cartoons or on the big screen, it's just kind of a given. We've got invincible kids and all that. Yeah, I couldn't come up with an example because I'm not a fan of trashy stuff. Anyway, the smart ones got the gist of it. That's why Freak and Morty isn't just a weird cartoon in every sense of the word. That said, yes, it's a cartoon that's weird in every sense of the word, and it's been breaking the mold for 12 years now. But over those 12 years, the very act of breaking the mold, as paradoxical as it may sound, it's become a bit of a routine. Thanks. I've created a channel where I'll probably be posting like crazy. Subscribe, y'all. See ya.